Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihar Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Vijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasoda Nandana Yasoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pavrikacharya Satara Sada Shri Srimad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Premska Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinda Ki Jai Jai Radha Krishna Gopa Gopanashai Mukunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mai Pranavadip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Shrimati Tulsi Devi Ki Harinam Sankirtan Ki Brihat Mridanga Ki Samaveda Bhaktivinda Ki Gaur Premanandi all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Guranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Before beginning today, I'm going to offer my obeisances to Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharani Nirvasesa Shunyavadi Prasachadeshtrani, and to all the assembled devotees, Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bevacha Patitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhaktivinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I see before me the most fortunate people on the planet, because everyone here is under the shelter of Srila Prabhupada their guru, advanced devotees, the previous acharyas, and everyone here has taken interest in becoming a pure devotee of the Lord. We couldn't have done that without Prabhupada. We couldn't do this without the previous acharyas, and we can't do it without Prabhupada's purports to all this Vedic literature. Today I'm going to be speaking about, broadly speaking, about religion, spirituality, and sense gratification. And as a preface to this, I'll tell a little story. It was 1978. It was the summer after Prabhupada had disappeared. And there was a big Rath Yatra in New York. And that year, as the previous couple of years, they gave us the whole Fifth Avenue. So it was quite a big Rath Yatra. I think a couple of years ago, and maybe this year, they also gave us the whole street again. For many years, they only gave us half. But this was the whole street. So it was a really, really big Rath Yatra. It was the first Rath Yatra after Prabhupada had disappeared. And Prabhupada's energy was still really, really, Prabhupada really hadn't even, of course he's never left, but it was like Prabhupada really hadn't left because it was really, it was just surcharged. We were all surcharged still with Prabhupada's immediate presence. And on the Sunday after the Rath Yatra, this was when we still owned the big temple on 55th Street on Manhattan. And on the Sunday after the Rath Yatra, there was a Sunday feast program. And at that Sunday feast program, there was this very long, very intense kirtan. It went along, I don't actually know how long. It could have been a couple hours, maybe an hour. It's hard to remember at this point, but it went on for a long time. I can't remember who led the kirtan, but just as it was going to end with the Jayom, the Prem Dhwani prayers, Tamal Krishna Maharaj just picked up the mridanga and kept the kirtan going. And it went on and on and on and on after that. And the atmosphere was like electrified. It was also extremely hot because the air conditioning, even if it was working, wasn't going to be working for 600 devotees all bouncing off the wall, dancing. And it was incredible. And anyway, then Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he said the Prem Dhwani prayers. And then he sat down to give the Sunday feast lecture, which was mostly to devotees. I know there were other people there, but it was a lot, mostly, a lot of devotees, because it was a big, big festival. And before he actually started speaking, he said, "We are the greatest sense gratifiers." And everybody kind of said, "Yes, because we have the best dancing, the best food, the best philosophy, the best music." And he went on and on with so many bests. Because actually, the greatest sense gratification in the universe is that sense gratification which is linked to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Because when we're engaged in gratifying Krishna's senses, then he gratifies our senses to a degree unfathomably greater than whatever a sense gratifier in this material world would like. And it surely will become present. If it hasn't dawned on us already, it's because of our neophyte stage, but it is guaranteed to happen through the process of Krishna consciousness. So I'm going to talk about a couple different kinds of religion today. The first one is on the board behind us. This is where Krishna is speaking to Arjuna, second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and he's speaking about essentially what we call conventional religion. Religion is a good thing. Prabhupada would never, ever speak badly about religion. He would speak badly about religion in the sense that it's cheating dharma. It doesn't provide one a chance to develop pure love of God. It's based on sense gratification. But it's better to be religious and be seeking sense gratification that way than to be an atheist. Or even better than being a Mayavadi philosopher who thinks he's finding the absolute truth, but he denies the existence of God. For anyone who acknowledges the existence of God and prays to God, for whatever reason, Prabhupada would say that wasn't a bad thing. It's a good thing. And modern sociological and psychological sorts of surveys also show this, that religious people are healthier and happier, live better lives, longer lives, have better relationships. I mean, it's really true. When I worked as a social worker and I had people in crisis, I would always try to find out what church you go to. And if they were at all religious or had any connection with it, there was much better outcome. Because there is something valuable about religion. But that said, it's really not valuable. Conventional material religion is not particularly valuable for the pursuit of the absolute truth. And here Krishna says, in these verses 42 and 43 of the Bhagavad Gita, I'm just going to read the English in this one. He says, men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas, which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets, result in good birth, power, and so forth. Being desirous of sense gratification and opulent life, they say there's nothing more than this. The last line, I will say, or Bogaishvarya Gatim Prati. They say that this Bogaishvara, this opulence and sense enjoyment, that's the goal, the Gati. Well, that may be a goal for persons, as Prabhupada says here in the purport. People in general are not very intelligent. And due to their ignorance, they are most attached to the fruitive activities recommended in the Karma Kanda portions of the Vedas. Now, let's discuss what Karma Kanda is. Karma Kanda is followed by karmis. Karmis are actually a regulated, relatively advanced stage of life. In the Vedic system, there are people who acknowledge God and come up with sacrifices in order to get a result, which is heavenly planets and some enjoyment in this material world. We used to call people in the old days karmis. But actually, they're not even karmis. They're vikkarmis because they're unregulated. No one really knows how to live life in a way which is progressive in this day and age. I mean, the varnashram system doesn't work, and all the different sacrifices that people do are ineffective in Kali Yuga. And that should be noted, that's why Prabhupada and all the acharyas emphasize chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Because, as Prabhupada said in an early class, without Lord Chaitanya, you have no hope. He said that about 4 times in a class given in, I think, San Francisco in 1967. So Prabhupada right out here says people are in general not very intelligent. Due to their ignorance, they are most attached to the fruitive activities recommended in the Karma Kanda portions of the Vedas. Now, let's say that we don't have people following the Karma Kanda portions, and we've got a lot of people who don't follow anything. But let's say we could take regular religious people. I pray to God, give me shelter, give me safety, give me a good family, give me money, help my kids go to college. They do not want anything more than sense gratificatory proposals for enjoying life in heaven where wine and women are available and material opulence is very common. But ultimately, what they think is that when we die, we're going to all be in heaven enjoying like anything, forever enjoying. But what they think is of enjoyment has nothing, there's no God there. You talk to the average person who's following one of these materialistic religions, heaven really doesn't include God. Grandma, Grandpa, Uncle Albert, and relatives, not my mean neighbors, but all sorts of people are included, but God's not there, because actually this form of religion really isn't asking anything from God except how can I enjoy here, and I know I gotta die, so can I continue it forever somehow? And so this is what Prabhupada says farther out in the purport. It is very difficult for such inexperienced persons to be situated in the determined action of Krishna consciousness. They can't really focus on the idea of being conscious of God everywhere, and of having the idea that I am meant to be conscious of God for His pleasure, not God being conscious of me for my pleasure. Generally speaking, that's what people want. Can you fix things for me here, right now? It's called Artha, Dharma, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. I'm going to be good and religious, and that's going to make me prosperous. And when I'm prosperous, because I'm good, then I'll have sense gratification. And because I can't live forever, I'm banking on the fact that you'll let me live forever in a place where I can be prosperous and happy forever. It doesn't really work that way, but it may work that way for some going to the heavenly planets. But Prabhupada says here, as fools are attached to the flowers of poisonous trees without knowing the results of such attractions, unenlightened men are similarly attracted by such heavenly opulence and the sense enjoyment thereof. Farther down it says here, such persons have no faith in liberation from material bondage, and they are very much attached to the pompous ceremonies of Vedic sacrifices. They don't really care about liberation from material bondage. And many of them don't even know they're in bondage. They think that everything's pretty good. I believe in God. He satisfies my desires. One time we were at a Buddhist monastery, and Rudrani likes to ask questions. And this Buddhist monastery, you have to understand that most Buddhists don't really believe in Buddhism, because it's really dry and it's impersonal. So they've got Pure Land Buddhism, which is like a sort of a shadow of devotion to God. So they worship, different deities, and they have. But anyway, their idea is that they really don't want to merge into nothing because they don't like that. Who would? So when Rudrani said, "Well, what's your goal in life?" To get a better birth. That's my goal, to get a better birth. And we, Rudrani and I recently, we happened to stumble upon a documentary about this big temple in South India called the Meenakshi Temple in Madurai. And they have this huge festival, which is actually, it's to Meenakshi, who's another name for Mother Durga or Parvati, and Shiva, and there's a wedding between Shiva and Meenakshi. And then there's Vaishnavas, worshippers of Vishnu there, who come down, and Vishnu blesses the wedding. It's a huge festival. And the documentary is really very good. Very respectful. It's done by people from India, and they knew all the words, and they knew how to speak right about everything, and really help people understand about this incredible culture with this incredible architecture. And the festival was like Rath Yatra, and it was huge, and people in the streets, and the deities being worshipped, and Vishnu kirtan, and Vishnu comes and blesses them. I mean, it's all merged together, and it's all for sense gratification. Everyone's saying, "Oh, I worship so we protect the city. Oh, so my family can be healthy." No, it's all there, but it's not there. It's because without the touch, without being given the mercy of a pure devotee, we can't actually understand why we're here. Prabhupada writes at the end here, he said, "It is understood that there are gardens called Nanda Kadana in which there is good opportunity for association with angelic, beautiful women and having a profuse supply of Soma Ras wine. Such bodily happiness is certainly sensual, and therefore there are those who are purely attached to such material temporary happiness as lords of the material world." So we pray, "Oh Krishna, oh God, oh Jehovah," whatever we call him, "please give me stuff so that I can be happy here. You're great, you're wonderful, but this doesn't satisfy." It ultimately does not satisfy, because ultimately the soul is saying, "I'm missing something. This isn't real. This isn't what I'm meant for." And unfortunately, because of the way things are couched in this material world, the religions of the day, with no information, the Western religions have no information about who God is. And the people who mix up everything, Shiva's God and Durga's God and Krishna's God or Vishnu's God, then they ultimately think that actually they're all part of one, which is Brahman. So it becomes impersonalism. And to give you an example of how this impersonalism is so pervasive, again, it's another story about Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He used to preach to a lot of people in Dallas. And he would bring important people in, and he was very tricky. He was a little bit, he played the part a little bit like Lord Chaitanya with Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. It didn't last a week, but he would let people mouth off for a long time, and then he would ask a really zinger question. Anyway, we had an imam from the North Texas Association of the Islamic Society. This was a really learned man. He was a professor at a university. He wasn't some fanatic, religionist, political person. He was a really learned scholar and really followed his tradition. So he was blabbing about things I can't even remember. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, "So what is Muhammad doing right now in the spiritual world?" And this man's mouth just dropped open. "Huh?" And then he said, "Oh, he's merged into the body of Allah." So all this talk about God, it ultimately becomes impersonalism. So we need to move beyond that. But we really can't move beyond that unless we get the mercy of a pure devotee. And there's many, many places where it talks about the mercy of a pure devotee. But one place I'd like to actually look at, and this is from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, and this is verse number 18. We chant this all the time. Nasta Preshu Abhadreshu, Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya, Bhagavati Uttama Shloke, Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. So, moving beyond religion for sense gratification, let's be clear about this. Impersonalism and Mayavadi philosophy is also sense gratification. It's just I want to get out of here and go someplace where I'm not bothered. I don't want God. I just want to be left alone. So it's not natural. So they all fall down again because they have what's called impure intelligence. Avashuddha Buddha means that intelligence which is not purified. So that happens to the Mayavadis. They fall back down into the material world. But here we hear about how by hearing the Bhagavatam and rendering service to the pure devotee. And Prabhupada makes it clear in the purport, he talks about two Bhagavats, the book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat. And they're both equal. The book Bhagavat, that's the Bhagavatam, heard from the person, that's the pure devotee, that's the perfection of practice of devotional service. A devotee Bhagavat is as good as the book Bhagavat because the devotee Bhagavat leads his life in terms of the book Bhagavat. And the book Bhagavat is full of information about the personality of Godhead and his pure devotees. In the case of Prabhupada, he's both the book and the person. This is remarkable if you think of it. Prabhupada has put himself into all his books. He's there in the book. You know, many of us who were Prabhupada disciples, we didn't have so much association with Prabhupada, but he infused everything with his energy. And he's infused himself in the energy of his purports in the books, so that those persons who have taken birth after Prabhupada left, they're getting also a chance to associate with Prabhupada through the book Bhagavat, and he's the person Bhagavat. And Prabhupada talks about the example of Narada Muni, who became very advanced because he served the Bhakti Vedantas when he was a little boy, even though he was only a son of a maidservant and had no qualifications. But for 4 months, he took the remnants and served them, and that led to his great fortune becoming Narada Muni. So in the same way, by serving the book Bhagavat and the person Bhagavat, then that is the spark that allows us to give up our attachment to this cheating Kaitava Dharma, cheating religion. Because any religion, any path of spirituality that doesn't involve service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is incomplete. It may have some positive value, but not on the absolute platform. Because on the absolute platform, the only thing that matters is that we revive our loving relationship with Krishna for an eternal relationship with him through loving service. And that's the only thing that matters. Other things, they come and go. Great kings have come and gone. And Prabhupada gives the example. He talks about, I can't remember I read this, but he went in a long talk about a prime minister in India. And I think he was speaking about the first prime minister, Nehru, who was, very, very exalted and didn't want to give up his post even till death. But he's taken birth as a dog. And he said, because of his activities were that of a dog, even though he had some exalted characteristics in this material world, he was forced, even though he was very important, to take a degraded birth. We don't want to have some sort of high position or sense gratification in this world, which will ultimately end up in some degraded situation. Therefore, we want to look at the pure devotees and follow them. And those pure devotees, if we can go to verse 14 of the 9th chapter, they're all engaged in activities that are ultimately eternal. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantas cha dridavrata Namasyantas chamam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me. These great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. Satatam, that means always. So when we enter a kirtan, it's really an always situation. Oh yes, they do end the kirtans because we run out of gas and we get tired. But Vrikeshvara Pandit danced straight for 72 straight hours, okay? So it took a long time for him to stop. But we see how there's an example of Prabhupada, how he never ran out of energy. I think it was in Australia, and Prabhupada was feeling ill, and it was cold. It was in Melbourne, and they were doing the Rath Yatra in July, which is not a great time to do it in Australia. And he was really ill. And so they were going to have a special car for him or sitting in the car. Prabhupada got out of the car and started dancing the whole way. And they would come up to him and say, "Are you okay, Prabhupada?" And Prabhupada would look at them and say, and he kept dancing through the whole Rath Yatra. Now, he was like 74 or 5 years old at the time. He wasn't feeling well. It was freezing cold. But he was not on the platform of we are on. Because at any time, Prabhupada could be lifted. I mean, he sometimes would be on a platform of a man in the 70s. I mean, that's just what happens when we have bodies here. But Krishna could lift him up in one moment and give him all the energy anytime he wanted. He could know anything he wanted, anytime Krishna wanted. Because the pure devotee, anytime Krishna wants him to do something, give him the power, he has it. So Prabhupada, after that, also gave the class. And then after that, I don't know, I can't remember. I think he went back and he was tired and probably had to finish off taking care of his cold or something. But the thing is that Prabhupada was on an eternal platform. And we're also on an eternal platform. Prabhupada one time said, if there's ever a nuclear war, don't go anywhere, just have a big kirtan. If you go out in a flash of light during a kirtan, well, hey, that's perfect. The flashlight happens, the next thing you know, you're with Lord Chaitanya. Haribo. Satatam kirtayanto mam. So always engaging, chanting about who? Me, no one else. Yatantam, fully endeavoring. Cha, also drida vrita, with determination. Now, endeavoring with a great determination doesn't mean we have to do all these great sacrifices, sitting in a ring of hot fire or immersing ourselves in cold water during the wintertime. It means fully endeavoring to be Krishna conscious. That means chanting good rounds. That means taking prasadam. That means associating with devotees. It means seeing the deities. It means engaging in the Sankirtan movement. If we're giving Krishna consciousness to others, Krishna notices that. Yes, he says in the Bhagavad Gita, in the end, he says, there's no one more dear than he who gives Krishna consciousness to others. So Krishna notices. So that's part of the determination, that drida vrata. And then namasyantas, offering obeisances to who? Me. With what? Devotion. And that's perpetually nitya yukta, engaging in worship. So this is the religion for the age. This is real religion. This is real sense gratification. When one is engaged in Krishna consciousness 24 hours a day and really engaged in Krishna consciousness, then our senses become they become fully engaged, fully satisfied, but that's in relationship to our service to Krishna. It's hard to believe
For the materialist, it's impossible to understand this. How can I be happy by making someone else happy? I mean, we know that maybe I make my boss happy so he gives me a raise. Or I make my family happy, and naturally I'll be happy because I enjoy seeing them being happy. But the idea of serving somebody eternally and ignoring my happy, the idea of the gopis. Oh, we'll go to hell just to get rid of, to rid Krishna of his headache. And that's the highest. Other devotees will pause at that, even great devotees. Hold it a second. Not quite ready to do that. But the idea is that everyone engaged, everybody we read about in the Krishna book, in the 10th canto, whether it's Dwarka pastimes or Vrindavan pastimes, has a pure relation. I mean, not everybody. Pondraka didn't. But so many devotees, they have pure relationships. And their happiness is derived purely from making Krishna happy. So let's read what Prabhupada says in the purport here. The Mahatma cannot be manufactured by rubber stamping an ordinary man. He may be referring to a famous Mahatma here, who was, as either he said, a saint among politicians or a politician among saints. And he did have some good qualities. But to call somebody a Mahatma is very special. Mahatma means a great soul. And what is this great soul? His symptoms are described here. A Mahatma is always engaged in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord Krishna, the personality of Godhead. He has no other business. Prabhupada didn't talk about anything other than Krishna. I mean, sometimes he talked about the business about Krishna, the temples, making sure that, our books were going out and that the books were, and that we're not spending money frivolously. I mean, certainly those were the things, but Prabhupada did not give advice about stocks. Prabhupada did not give advice about what kind of car to buy. Prabhupada only gave advice about how to become a pure lover of God. That was all he taught. That's all he spoke about. Listen to his classes. There's no wasted words there. He doesn't, because he gives nothing but Krishna. That's his only business. So that's the definition of the Mahatma, or the great soul, the pure devotee. He is always engaged in the glorification of the Lord. Prabhupada's entire life was engaged in the glorification of the Lord. When he took initiation from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, that was like 11 years after he first met him. When he took initiation in 1933, he was really, in a sense, a little bit of an outcast, not an outcast in a bad way, but he was detached from the general Gaudiya Math. He was a businessman, and he had his own household, etc. But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he knew that Prabhupada would fulfill his desire to spread Krishna consciousness in the West. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur tried very hard. He sent his own disciples to London and to Europe, and they weren't successful. And granted, it was the 1930s and World War II was going to start soon, but they weren't successful. And at one point, towards the end of his life, Bhaktisiddhanta was speaking to a crowd of devotees, and he said that the person who's going to spread Krishna consciousness is here, and he looked at Prabhupada. So he knew that Prabhupada would do that. And Prabhupada, he had the complete empowerment by his guru. Because Prabhupada knew the mission of his guru. And the mission of his guru was the same as the mission of Bhaktivinoda Thakur and the mission of the pure devotees that came before him, which is to give Krishna consciousness to everyone. Because it's a very, it says and it's very clear. Rupa Goswami says that pure devotional service is rare. That's a rather startling thing to hear. If it's rare, who's going to get it? Well, it's rarely seen in a group of us here. At least speaking for myself, it's not coming now for me, but I know by following Prabhupada and his teachings and chanting and praying to him that it will come. And I may be that rare person in a future birth, but it will come to everyone who takes up Krishna consciousness. It's guaranteed to come, provided we stay on the boat. I was just reading something recently that Prabhupada was quoting from 1967. And a devotee was saying, he was responding to the devotee. He said, so you don't like this man or you don't like that man. Well, this Krishna consciousness movement is attracting all sorts of people. And they come from all different backgrounds. And some of them are first class and some of them are second class, some are third class. And you don't need to really associate with everybody, but you have to understand this. If you're on a ship, and that ship is crossing the ocean, and you don't like some of the other people on the boat, then just don't talk to them. But stay on the boat and get to your destination. And he said, and finish the business you're meant to start, which is to become Krishna conscious. So Prabhupada was giving us this opportunity. Now, we are very fortunate here in New Goloka that we've got a really wonderful community of supported devotees. We can all help each other, new and old. It's not like, oh, I'm a Prabhupada disciple. Well, I'm a Prabhupada disciple because, I took birth at a certain time. But some of you were great devotees while I was just struggling as a new bhakta. And then you took birth later, and now here you are, and you're bringing all this great, incredible Krishna consciousness background with you. We see it. Some of these young people born in our movement, they're very advanced from a very early age. So Prabhupada goes on to say, when the question of glorification is there, one has to glorify the Supreme Lord, praising his holy name, his eternal form, his transcendental qualities, and his uncommon pastimes. One has to glorify all these things. Therefore, a Mahatma is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's this attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that is the goal of our life, not anything else. Prabhupada goes on to say, one who is attached to the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmajyoti, is not described as the Mahatma in the Bhagavad Gita. He is described in a different way in the next verse, which we won't get to. The Mahatma is always engaged in different activities of devotional service as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing and chanting about Vishnu, not a demigod or a human being. That is devotion. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, and remembering him. Every day. Prabhupada wants us to read every day. Hearing and chanting every day. Fill our day up with hearing and chanting. And then remembering. We can't remember if we don't have something to remember. In other words, if we're not hearing and we're not chanting, then what is there to remember? A baseball game. An old movie. And God knows, for us who grew up outside the movement, a lot of old songs, which aren't helpful. But if we can remember Krishna, it's like, in the old days we had these cassette tapes, and you could rewrite over them. If you had something you didn't like, you pop it in, you could re-record over it. Well, Krishna consciousness is re-recording over the old tapes. It's taking new impressions and replacing the old impressions. These, what do they call, what's the word for impression in Sanskrit? I can't remember now. Starts with an A. Samskara. It starts with an S. That's why I couldn't remember. A samskara. I could think of it like a scar, you know. It's a scar on our consciousness, and we have to cover it over with something more palatable, which is Krishna consciousness. There's samskars. We have these old samskars, and we want to have new samskars. Such a Mahatma has firm determination to achieve at the ultimate end the association of the Supreme Lord in any one of the 5 transcendental rasas. Here's Prabhupada talking about rasas in the Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. Doesn't get into detail, but he's making it clear that when we associate with Krishna, it's not like, you know, some kind of floating in the clouds and, you know, some sort of like a seance or something like that. It's real. It's more real than anything. It's eternally a loving relationship, either as a friend or as a parent or a lover, servant. Just imagine if one is a tree, even in Vrindavan, and you're a tree, you know, that happens to overlook the rasa dance. Wow. And you get to drop your flowers on Krishna and Radha. Who can say what our position is? But one of these kind of positions is there for us. To achieve that success, he engages all activities, mental, bodily, and vocal, everything in the service of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. That is called full Krishna consciousness. I'm going to skip this next paragraph to go to the last one here. As described in the 2nd verse of this chapter, and this is a very important verse, verse number 2, Raja Vidya Raja Guyam Pavitram idam uttamam pratyaksha bhagamam dharmyam susukam kartam avyayam. This knowledge is the king of education, the most secret of all secrets. It is the purest knowledge, and because it gives direct perception of the self by realization, pratyaksha bhagamam, that's direct perception. We actually see directly. It is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting. Everlasting. Avyayam. And it is joyfully performed. Susukam. Kartam. Not just sukam, but susukam. Really joyfully performed. And so that's what Prabhupada's citing here. He's citing this verse as described in the 2nd verse of this chapter. Not only is this devotional service easy, but it can be performed in a happy mood. Now, sometimes we think devotional service is hard. Oh, it's a hard thing. And sometimes we have hard things happen in our life. We can't deny that's going to happen. We live in a place where bad things happen. That's it. That's the way it happens. We're here in an environment which is dukkhalayam ashasvatam. It's temporary and it's miserable, okay? So it's guaranteed we're going to have adhyatmic, adhidaivic, and adhibaudic miseries. Either there's going to be demigods causing a flood, or we're going to have a toothache, or we're going to get bitten by mosquitoes, or we're going to have people die who are close to us, or we're going to have, you know, bad things are going to happen. They're just going to happen. Bad things happen to Prabhupada, too. And he started the League of Devotees in 1955. He was really making some progress, and then the person who ran into the building decided to make it a ladies' club. You would think he might become discouraged. No, he took that as like, okay, it's not going to work. I'm going to do something else. He lost his whole first manuscript of the Bhagavad Gita. Someone stole it. I mean, there were no, like, you know, backup copies. It was a hard copy, and that was one hard copy. He has to start all over again. So I mean, not that, and he had heart attacks coming across. It's not that Prabhupada had an easy ride, but he knew what he knew what he had to do, and he knew that he would perform this in a happy mood. Don't be depressed, because Krishna consciousness is absolute. Not that we're gonna go through hard times, and sometimes the hard times are good for us because it makes us surrender. We have to see it that way. It says here now, one does not need to undergo any severe penance and austerity. Okay, none of this stuff that you have to do in these other yoga systems you have to do. We don't have to do that. It's really easy. Well, guess what? It's easy, but we still have to do it right, which means we have to chant pure rounds eventually. And we certainly have to get away from chanting Nama Parad and come to Nama Bas. We get to Nama Bas, we're really gonna like to chant. We get to 16 rounds and we think, hey, I get some more time. I'm gonna chant more rounds. Not like, well, I'm glad that's over. No. Wow, I get more time. You know, sometimes I'm done with my rounds, now I have to get down to some business. But if we got more time, let's chant more. Haridas Thakur, that's all he did. Now don't try to become like Haridas Thakur. Prabhupada said it over and over and over again. We're not gonna, we'll just fall down. But the idea being is that it's easy, it's simple, but it has to be done right. Chanting, we have to make sure we hear every day. We have to make sure we associate with devotees, see the deities, eat pure food, take prasadam. Maybe it's not always possible if you've got a job or something like that, but it's always, whenever you have a stove in some boga, cook before you do anything else and offer it. He can live this life in devotional service, and here's the point here, guided by an expert spiritual master and in any position, either as a householder or sannyasi or a brahmachari, in any position, anywhere in the world, he can perform this devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus become actually Mahatma, a great soul. So it's not like there's just these Mahatmas out there and we go, oh, gee, that's really great, they're Mahatmas, but I'm always going to be Duratma. No. Prabhupada actually wanted all his disciples to become gurus, not necessarily initiating, but he wanted everybody to become purified and to become a great soul, that we could actually guide people in Krishna consciousness. So all of us can become great souls. It takes a while. It's not going to happen immediately. You know, if we've been here for an interminable births, and we read something that says, you become Krishna conscious immediately. Well, you know, if it's 3 births, that's pretty immediate if you've been here for all eternity. It takes a long time to stop a big ship and turn it around. So that's what we've done. We're turning around the ship that's been sailing into Maya, and we're taking up Krishna consciousness and sailing off to the island of Krishna, where we can eternally dance with Krishna and his associates and eternally serve in some loving mood that will be totally satisfying. And we want to teach others. And that's why we have the Sankirtan movement, which is to get out there and give the holy name. They hear the holy name. Some lady was videoing us with her camera, not her camera, a phone nowadays. No one uses a camera. But, you know, using her phone for like 2.5 minutes across the street. She got a book. Other people go by, I don't want a book. Cookie? Sure. And other people just go by and they thumbs up. They like the Harinam. They like the chanting. everybody gets to set ear engaged, tongue engaged. And think about this in this day and age of posting videos. Hey, I just saw the Hare Krishnas, and they post it. And they send it to a friend in Australia or in Newark or some other place. And they see it too. And they say, well, that's pretty cool. I'm going to post this too. And so that kirtan gets out. A couple of years ago, we had a kirtan that was pretty remarkable. I won't get into it because we're getting close to the end of the class. But it somehow or other, we reached a certain point and we had like 5,000, views and a whole bunch of shares. And it was like, wow, this probably got out to 15,000 people in one form or another. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Questions? I probably don't have any answers, but okay. Devotees who leave the movement for whatever reason or drift away from practicing, they oftentimes come back and say, I was ruined. I couldn't go back. I couldn't enjoy what was there. I was ruined. I had to come back. Because they know they couldn't be satisfied anymore. They go back to the same old chewing the chewed, and really is chewing, you know it then. And you have to come back. Krishna says, come on. You're coming back. It's like a fish who bites onto a hook, and he's a big fish. And he goes, wow, I've got the hook. And he swims really hard, and he thinks, I got away. But finally, the fisherman starts cranking him back in. Oh, what's going on here? Krishna cranks us back in. Even if we think we got away, we took the bait and we never get away. Krishna consciousness is so powerful. Any other questions? Yes, Prabhu.
Prabhu, you mentioned about we all are being empowered by our guru for doing some service in Krishna consciousness. And at some point we are going to realize it. So it's always better to realize it sooner than later. So my question is, what does it take, or what's the key to realize that for what service we are being empowered? And second question is there any chance that we may miss it in this life and never realize it?
You may miss it in this life, but you'll always realize it. I mean, seriously, we may not, make it. But in this life, but we will make it. I mean, that's just guaranteed. And as far as secrets, Prabhupada said just perfect the chanting. Perfect our chanting. If we perfect the chanting and become attached to kirtan and become attached to japa and perfect the chanting, we'll get so much taste. Things will become clear through that chanting. It's not a magic formula. It's a matter of being persevering and following what Prabhupada gave us, which is perfect their chanting, hear about Krishna, fall in love with Krishna because we've heard about him. And we'll let the chips fall where they may. It's up to him. It's up to him. If he wants to keep us around 10 more lives, that's what happens. And if he wants to take us back tomorrow, that's what happens. But he's taking care of us. We have to all have that understanding that no matter what happens, Krishna is taking care of us. He will never do anything to cause harm to his devotee. We're in good hands. We have to understand that. It's an absolute fact. It's a good point, though. Good question. Yes.
So it says that, Hare Krishna, it says that the flowery words of Vedas, so the Vedas are book of knowledge, then why they have such flowery words that leads people to sense gratification instead of directly telling about Krishna?
Because everyone has free will, and the Vedas provide those persons who don't want to know about God a chance to act in the material world without degrading themselves. In other words, if you act without any kind of knowledge at all, you end up degrading yourself. And you just have to look at people, what they do today, and you realize people are degrading themselves. But the Vedas offer an opportunity to say, okay, we know you want something, so follow the rules that we give you, and you'll get something that you like in this material world. I hope you change your mind eventually, but this is what you get. And so it's a big kind of compendium of knowledge. And some of it is useful. There's Jyotish, it's astrology. There's Ayurveda. We want to be healthy. And if you're a soldier, you want to know Dhanurveda. So yeah, they have that's why we study the cream of the Vedas. What is that? The Srimad Bhagavatam. That's the cream. Nothing, there's no fluff in the Bhagavatam. It's all essential. You read the Mahabharata, a lot of it is just, it's a great story, but it's not necessarily, stuff you need to know to go back to Godhead. It's intrigue and battles, a lot of it.
Thank you.
Okay, one more question, then we is it Sukartna?
Yeah.
You always have good questions.
Yeah.
Get the microphone.
Okay. I have somewhat of a hard. I chant my rounds, but sometimes I just have a hard time pronouncing or tend to chant too fast. How can I improve that?
Slow down. Slow down, and if you have trouble, it's not. First of all, if you're initiated, chant 16 plus, okay? If you're not initiated, chant as many as you can. And if you can't pronounce properly, you're going too fast, slow down and chant fewer rounds, but chant them well. Okay?
Okay.
Make sure you hear them. And
Okay.
Krishna will provide you the speed later.
Okay.
I think everybody wants to have dinner.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.